7 o'clock. We will get started. Good evening. It is 7 o'clock on Wednesday, March 25th, and I am calling this meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board to order. My name is Chris LaValle, and I'm the chair of the board. Tonight, we will be following the posted agenda. The meeting tonight is both Zoom and in person. Zoom fails at any point in the meeting, we will continue in person. The meeting is being televised live and recorded via Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and on their YouTube channel. Tonight we are missing Mike, and Anita is on Zoom, and is Marcy on Zoom? Okay, so Marcy and Anita are both on Zoom, and we are only missing Mike today. Everyone else is present in the room. All right, first on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone on Zoom? Okay, no one in the room, no one on Zoom, so we'll continue to the next item. Proctor Road, recommendation for road acceptance. And then I'm assuming this is the one going before town meeting?
That's correct. Yeah, I think it's the last article. I think you may have done one of these within the last couple of town meetings. It's fairly self-explanatory. DPW and the manager provided a letter to the board. Procedurally, this requires the planning board to take a vote to recommend in order for it to be voted on at town meeting. Once town meeting votes on it at some point in the future, the actual Mylars will appear before you for signature.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any questions, comments? I'm assuming everyone's looked at it.
Yes, no questions. I agree with it. It just came to me. It was the planning board considered. I think it was a portion of Parkhurst Road that was a similar one that we get.
Yeah. And this looks like it's the full length of Proctor Road, all the way to the town line. All right, if no one has any.
No, I was going to say I'll make a motion that we vote to accept the recommended layout. If there's, I didn't see the special.
I think it's a vote to recommend the town accept.
Recommend the town accept Proctor Road as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Deirdre, and we do have to do roll call tonight. So Anita.
Yes.
Marcy.
Yes.
Saritha.
Aye.
Deirdre.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Joel. Aye. And I am an aye as well. So that is unanimous. All right, no new public hearings tonight. Citizens petition, I still have not heard from Mr. Latina. So I will take a motion to continue to the next meeting in April, and that's going to be the last opportunity, and we will vote on it in the next meeting.
I have a point of clarification? I was just thinking about this actually today and thinking that my understanding, and I guess I could go back and look at the last town meeting, but my understanding, and the note from the Attorney General, my understanding of the reason that we made the change that we made last time was they were changes recommended by the Attorney General so that the town would, in our ADU or boarding house or whatever it was, would be in compliance with Mass General Law. Is that correct?
So it's mostly correct. It's because anything that we had, so the blood relation and the by marriage could be construed as unfair housing practices.
Right.
So it could open up the town to a lawsuit if someone were to be denied housing based on the definition of family.
So if we were to change, if town meeting were to take up this citizen petition and pass it as a change to reverting back to the old definition of family, then we would be, in effect, going against the recommendations of the Attorney General and potentially opening up the town to litigation.
Yep.
Like, it's not that we philosophically disagree with the definition of family and would think we should redefine family.
Yeah.
We're trying to comply with
Yeah,
Mass General
it's
law.
based, it's a zoning definition and
Right.
not a societal,
Philosophical, right.
philosophical
Yeah,
definition.
I think that, maybe if we're gonna put it off another time, which I think is completely reasonable, I think that maybe we should have our own response that encapsulates that reasoning as, because I assume we will still take a vote.
Mhm.
And then I think we should try and formulate a reason behind our vote that kind of explains our position
Yeah, I
from
can,
whence it comes.
I can do that for town meeting, because they likely will ask the planning board for the recommendation, because this is a zoning article.
And the rationale.
Yeah, so I can certainly talk through that.
Okay, thanks.
So I will take a motion to continue this public hearing to
Move
April
con-
7th.
Move to continue the public hearing to April 7th.
Motion by
Second.
Deirdre.
Second.
Sec-
April 8th.
April 8th. Thank you. I was just checking
I
that.
think you said the same thing last night in front of Concom.
Did I? Yeah. I have the election stuck in my head. All right. Motion by Deirdre for the 8th, second by John. And on Zoom, we have Marcy,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Sarita,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So that we are continuing. All right, next up, Community Development Director's Report.
So good evening. Two quick items. First item is the gap analysis presentation has been scheduled for Tuesday, May 5th, 6:30 PM at the library. That will include the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the Board of Health. The consultant will be presenting and walking through the proposal, findings and proposals.
What room is it in again?
The main meeting room at the library, main library,
I'm sorry, what was the date again?
Tuesday, May 5th.
Okay.
So we'll have a draft out to you prior to that. Second item is in accordance with the Managed Growth Strategy Task Force meetings. I have been working with NIMCOG to prepare and submit a state grant to obtain funding for Phase 1. That grant is due this Friday. So that is, it's Phase 1. That project, the scope per the task force recommendations is a bit more detailed than kind of initial draft scopes contemplated. So we're seeking 2 separate rounds of funding. Each round would be upwards, this is between state funding and local funding, upwards of $200,000 in totality. That's a pretty extensive data analysis. So, as I said, we're on track to submit that grant application this Friday. And then the Managed Growth Strategy Committee will continue to meet with NIMCOG between now and, announcement of that grant.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Evan, on the gap analysis presentation, is that a public hearing?
No,
Okay,
it's a public meeting.
right.
So we'll post, all 3 town boards will be posted, it'll be open to the public, but it's not a public hearing. Some of the recommended actions for implementation will require certain boards to hold public hearings to revise regulations, and potentially, there may be a need for town meeting to vote.
Okay, but there wouldn't be opportunity for comment from the public at that particular meeting?
I don't think that was the way it was designed. But I think if someone were to attend, I think it would be within the discretion of the chairs. The primary purpose of this meeting is for the board to engage directly with the consultant.
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
Excuse me. All right, liaison updates. Anyone from anything?
Just last Wednesday, I attended a NIMCOG meeting, and I'll cover, it was a pretty of a lengthy meeting, but I'll cover that under that other agenda item.
Okay.
One other thing was, I was considering whether we should extend a liaison to the Chelmsford Water District. And so I don't think we need to take any official action on this until we constitute a new board. But in any case, I think that's something that we should consider. I think just given the fact that the number of our issues have to do with water, and also because, just to facilitate communication between our board and what they're doing. So we
With
can
both,
weigh
with
the
the
pros and cons.
various ones?
Just that, I think the main one being the Chelmsford Water District. Now, whether we consider it for North as well, that could be.
If we're gonna consider it, I would like to consider it
For all three.
All three,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
to be consistent.
okay.
Do we have any idea if the water districts are interested in liaisoning with us?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can just show up, but, yeah, I don't know, it's a
And
good
that,
question.
it also may be a challenge, because I know at least East has most of their meetings during the day.
Yeah, yeah,
Every other Tuesday on a
Yeah.
blue moon in the middle of the day.
yeah, yeah.
So it may be challenging to get liaisons to those meetings, but we can certainly discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's the,
Do they have
it's
any
the
virtual
center that's
options?
having the most.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay.
yeah, just to put that out there to think about.
Yep. Any other liaison updates, Anita or Marcy?
Senna Village met, they came up with a third potential plan for Chelmsford Street, and we're gonna meet again on April 2nd, and Christine Clancy from DPW is supposed to be there to come and take a look at the plans and give some insight in that way as well.
Okay. Anita, anything for you?
No.
Okay. For Conservation Commission, yesterday's meeting was Chris Garahan's first meeting as new chair. They have a potential new member that I believe is going for the select board on Monday. I'm not sure who that is, I haven't checked. And then they did mention the gap analysis. Nothing else really stood out. The one thing in April, because of the way the meetings are staggered, meetings will happen in April between Concom and Planning Board. So I don't think we'll be able to get any updates from them, since our meeting is going to be before theirs in April. So we probably won't get any other updates from them until May. All right, anyone else? All right, moving on, new business, zoning article updates. So after,
Here's some info about Cell.
Sorry. I don't know what I did.
activated Siri, I think that was my voice that activated Siri. All right, so after the last meeting, I took a look at what else we have on the priority list and started drafting some of the other more straightforward items. The first one, if you look at the childcare zoning, the first link, Evan. So based on the Attorney General recommendations, it's really to align the definitions of childcare facility and family daycare home with the state definition. The proposal that I drafted was to essentially combine the definitions, childcare facility or family daycare home, and then redefine it as a childcare center or home as defined in MGL 15D, Section 1A. And for people's reference, I did put that into the document, just so people can see how it is defined. And then the second link is essentially just striking those two lines from the use table. And essentially the
So
reason.
you're combining,
We're combining the definition.
you're combining,
Yeah, we're combining the definition into one definition that essentially refers to the state definition, since both of those are referred to in the state definition, and then removing the use from the use table. Because they're exempt uses.
Can't zone it.
Yeah, we can't zone it, so they're exempt protected uses from the Dover Amendment.
so we just take them out completely.
Yep. Any questions?
I don't see that we have any other options.
Wait a minute. No, hold on a second. So you're gonna take them out, so they're not gonna come? Or, can you see the chart again?
Say that again, Anita, you broke up.
Yeah, so is line 2 what we're adding?
No, for the use table, line 2 and line 32 are getting stricken. So those will be completely removed.
So if they're putting in a daycare facility, don't we still want it to go through like a site review and all of that, even if it's,
Yeah,
if it's
it
not
still
gonna come in front
would.
of us at all?
It still would.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to make sure. Okay. Okay. Under what?
They would come in as the child home care or day, whatever
Under site plan.
yeah, it would come under site plan.
Okay.
Much like the one did on
Yep.
North Road.
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure.
Yeah, having it in the use table doesn't define whether it comes before us. It just allows it or doesn't allow it or creates a special permit for it.
Yeah.
But it's allowed, and we can't ask for a special permit, so
Yep.
we don't need to delineate those facts.
The only comment I would make is, there are a variety of other exempt uses. We don't define any of them. So if we choose to define, what is it, home daycare and child daycare, that would be the only exempt use.
Are the other exempt uses defined
So as you,
in the
So
state?
oh, yeah, they all have, so per our use table, you would go to MGL 40A, Section 3. So I just bring that to your
So you're
attention.
saying we don't really need to define them?
I don't
'Cause they're
think you need to
defined
define them, but if you're going to define one, then maybe you want to consider defining all of them. Your
So
other
will we
option is,
define church and define school?
no, your other option is under exempt uses, you could do, A through E, and list the 5 or 6 exempt uses that the
Yeah,
state.
but then
Right.
if they add new ones,
Right.
we'll have to update it.
Right, so I just wanted to bring to your attention that we
Yeah.
don't define any of the other exempt uses.
What if we defined? Yeah, that'd be too complicated. I was gonna say defined the exempt use definition and then refer back to,
You could do that, I think it's essentially gonna say what the use table says per MGL 48.
yeah, that's
Section 3.
essentially what it would say, but
Yeah.
it would be a definition as opposed to a use in the use table.
Yep.
I could do that.
So I think what council, it may have been as part of this discussion, or maybe a prior town meeting, he had indicated to the board that in some cases, you may specifically want to have a local definition that goes, not necessarily above and beyond, but that, I think it was related to the boarding house, I think
Yeah.
was the example he gave.
Such that it's more specific.
Correct, in which you would have a local definition and a local regulation.
And we do, I think it was
Boarding house.
boarding house, because in the boarding house, we stated the state definition and our local.
Right.
So in
I
this-
don't think we're gonna endeavor to define church and school, so I think
Right.
we could keep this and not be opening up inconsistencies. I mean, I guess I don't really know to what extent this definition is clarifying above and beyond the state law, but
I'm sorry, are you saying to keep it the way Chris is proposing it? or-
yeah, I think
Okay.
it's fine.
Okay, because I was starting to lean towards just taking them out and not putting something back in place and just citing, I mean, it's just an exempt use and that's cited, so. Of course, why this, in the state's infinite wisdom, you'd have a nursery or a kindergarten in IA is beyond me. Or in CB, which has a lot of auto stuff, like auto repair.
Contractor's yard, maybe.
I'm not sure I understand
Mixed
that.
use, a daycare and a contractor yard.
Yeah, that's okay.
Workers' kids have to go somewhere.
Reminds me in LA, one exit we had, there was a kindergarten or something like that off the exit, and there was barbed wire fencing all the way around it. And it was like, is that to keep people from getting in, or is that to keep the kids from getting out? I wasn't sure. But anyway,
Wow.
All right, so what are people thinking? Should we just leave it out of the definitions completely, or?
I don't have a strong opinion.
that's where I'm leaning, is to not have it. If it's an exempt use that's already defined in the MGL and we have in our bylaws with what the use table is for exempt uses, and we just leave it out.
People okay with that?
Yeah, I agree with Joel.
Okay. I will make the update.
Key is, can you convince during the meeting,
Yeah.
Can we get
It'll be the
Marcy's
same
head
argument
next
at
to
town meeting
Anita's?
either way.
side by side?
Can we get Marcy's head next to Anita's, or that's not a thing?
Melissa's not sharing her head.
Oh, she's not sharing her head?
No, it's just a name.
Oh, I think you have to when you're on
No.
meetings.
Oh, she's supposed to?
Oh, I think you're supposed to.
I think that's a practice for the public.
She's trying now, and she can't.
Yeah, my camera does not seem to want to.
We verified you earlier.
I'm sorry, I've been trying to, it just doesn't seem to want to like me.
No problem.
Strike through eye, it's great.
All right. Next item. Clarification of zoning 195-104, the special procedures and procedures for special permits and site plans.
Excuse me.
So this one has been quite challenging, because as I was digging into the zoning and the regulations, there's a lot of overlap and duplication in the two. And at the same time, I'm also working on consolidating all of our regs into one document, so numbering is also changing.
Difficult.
So the first document is related to the clarification of the zoning that we would do. And Evan has it up on the screen, page 3, number 3 is the wording that I'm proposing. And this is based on recommendation from town council, where you describe essentially what the overview is in the zoning, based on the zoning regulations. And then the process and the procedures would be detailed in the rules and regs about how it's done and when to vote and things like that. So he's suggesting that we mention that if both a site plan approval and special permit are needed, we can do the review, the two reviews simultaneously, and then refer to the regulations for the procedures on how it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I don't think you want to use the word shall there, because shall is usually directed towards the applicant. They're required, basically it's their requirement to do, but this is basically a statement of information, that the procedures are in the planning board, but not shall be. In other words, we're directing ourselves, and that seems a little bit odd, so.
Instead of shall be are?
Shall be hard.
No, I mean, are you thinking, no, instead of shall be, are you thinking
Yeah,
like are
yeah.
established in the planning board
Yeah.
rules and regulations?
Yeah, yeah. It's a statement of
It's like
fact.
dictatorial.
Why
The
does it say-
shall, it's like,
Why does it say may? Currently, it says shall, but
It currently says that.
on 3, the current planning
current
board
wording?
regulation
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
says
Yeah.
shall. Is it with intent that the board may decide?
No, that should, I think that should be shall.
Okay.
I just missed that.
So it's just,
Because I
Does
don't
that
think
mean-
there would be any case where we wouldn't do it.
yeah, I mean, unless there was a legal strategy. But I can't think of
I've
any.
never
off- I mean,
s-
Yeah,
I've
this
never-
isn't referring to the decision, this is referring to the
The process.
to the process. So I think it benefits all involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments on that change?
Is there more within the regulation?
That's what I'm looking for. I thought there was, but I don't think so.
No.
Nope, not for this one. The next one has the more complicated ones that, and I'm using this document for a number of different changes, so. So this document, the rules and regs were a standalone document. I'm pulling them into that combined document, so that's why the headers have been adjusted as well as the numbering. And then if you go to section 141, it used to be 4. That has the,
Where's 141?
age 14. So you can ignore the first, the 134 review of application section for now. We'll get to that one after. It's the joint site plan and special permit review section that I added in.
You have may in there again.
Yep.
Two times.
may vote jointly or separately.
Yeah.
and
So where's
may-
that get decided?
Well,
It
I
means you
thought
can
that
either-
what you just said is that we were gonna be referring to the regs to decide in what order, but so then it wouldn't be jointly. Right? Am I splitting hairs?
So I think here for So the planning board, that first may should be a shall, review both concurrently in a single public hearing. And then,
Shall review both concurrently in a single public hearing, yeah. May vote
and then I was thinking
jointly
about
or
the,
separately.
I was thinking about the votes, and we have voted on things separately, but in a specific order.
Right, but you wouldn't vote on them jointly.
I did find some references in other towns where they do vote on them together. I don't, and what I wanted to bring back to this board is, does that complicate things?
Yeah, I don't think we should do that. I think we should do it separately, but based on the hierarchical structure that will be outlined separately.
Well,
Like
actually, I
in
mean,
terms of
you may
if
want
A,
to
then
keep
B.
may want some flexibility there, because some of them, there may be some permits that you don't want to have to do individually, you just may want to group them all
Oh,
together.
I see,
But like
yeah.
aquifer protection, you want to do that one separately.
Sure.
Because it's pretty important. So I could see that you'd want to keep your flexibility as to what you could or couldn't vote in one thing.
I think the driving issue here was where the use requires a special permit and/or a major business complex special permit, that the board procedurally wants to provide notice to the applicant and codify to itself that it is going to vote on the use special permits first. Because if those don't pass, then there's
those
no
don't
point,
make
there's no
sense.
point talking about aquifer,
Right,
site plan, miscellaneous other special permits.
that's
I
true.
think that was what we would,
Yeah, that was
Discussing.
part of it, but then as I was looking at some of the other examples in other towns where they did combine it, I didn't know if that
so what, so
makes sense.
what you may be referring to, there's a bunch of towns that in their zoning refer to a special permit site plan, and they haven't separated the two. So like, I think Tewksbury, you see the Tewksbury-Billerica still has
Okay.
it's like a combined special permit site plan, and that's codified in their zoning.
Now that you mention it, didn't they do that with the gristmill too? They
Well,
wanted.
for the overlays, the overlays under COID, the board is required to do a single public hearing and vote and issue a single decision, so that you're not necessarily treating individual special permits individually, you're treating it as a collective.
Right, okay.
This is not referring to COID, which was the other point I was going to make. I think this is speaking to the situation that we found ourselves with Riverdeck, where the use requires a special permit and/or major business complex.
Uh-huh.
That the board wants to resolve that issue first.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially how that vote played out and how that decision was written. You may even want to take this a step further and kind of introduce the language that was included in that River Neck Road decision that basically said if the use and/or major business complex special permit fails upon a vote, then all other permits become null and void. I forget the language that we used.
Yeah, okay, that's a good idea.
I think that's very sensible.
So, remove the fact that they will be voted on jointly in a single decision. Note that it will be, even though it'll be concurrent in a single public hearing, we will be voting on them separately and issuing separate decisions. And specify the order of the vote, which is special permit vote, this use special permit vote first, and include the language of the public, of the River Neck.
And the major business complex.
Okay. All right, I can do that. Any other feedback on this one?
Are we gonna run all this by council?
Oh, yeah. So
Like
my
after we have a
plan-
better working?
Yeah, so my plan on all of these is to do the legwork now while we have the time. And then when we get closer to and run all of this by town council. Then when we get closer to the next town meeting, have opened the public hearing for all of this stuff. And it would end up being probably 2 separate public hearings, one for all the zoning changes and one for all the regulation changes, because we have to have, although some of these are tied together, so I'm not sure how we'll split those out, but we'll figure it out. So we'll end up doing some regulation changes and some zoning changes. The zoning changes will go before town meeting, and then the regulation changes will essentially just get adopted that night.
Internally.
Yep.
And into a document.
Yes. But I figured since we've got the time, we might as well do all of this legwork now, and then hold the public hearings later when we get closer.
You rock.
Thank you. All right, so the next item is department reviews, which is that section above. This is essentially adding a little bit more detail on what department reviews we do, and then adding the departments or the groups. It's actually not just departments, it's also groups. And then adding the groups that we wanted to also add in the cases where we wanted them to review the traffic mitigation recommendations and special conditions. Any input, comments?
Yeah, my thought on this one is, if you're going to start listing boards and committees, I'm not suggesting you would absolutely need to, but if that's what you want to do, BPAC, Tree Committee, Historical Commission,
Green.
Those aren't ones we typically,
they're not.
Do it on
I
a
only
regular
mention them
basis.
within the context that Commission on Disabilities is on here.
Well, historic, we have asked for information on.
So I only mention it because you have Commission on
Yeah.
Disabilities here. The Commission on Disabilities, they're not regulatory. They're engaged with the building commissioner.
In advisory capacity or suggesting capacity?
They're required, this town's required by law to have a Commission on Disabilities. Each town, each Commission of Disabilities in each town operates very differently. So, I mean, I could see instances where the planning board's review may warrant a review from the tree committee. I could see where maybe historical, maybe BPAC.
so.
I'm not so sure about Commission on Disabilities in the same context of those other three.
So because some of these groups are not as consistent, should I just generalize it and say, may from time to time seek input from other
Seek
town?
input, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. In years past, a number of years ago, BPAC actively tried to engage with the planning board on reviews. At the time, I think the planning board was mixed about that.
What's BPAC again?
Bicycle
Bicycle
pedestrian,
pedestrian, okay, sorry.
which is likely why recently BPAC hasn't been engaged with the planning board. I would reference it generally, and then I think if and when we get to the point of actually considering having any of those boards or committees provide input, I think we need to have another conversation.
Yeah.
About what specifically?
Yeah, and I think most of those would be on a case-by-case basis, depending on the
Yep.
project. Okay. All right, I will generalize that piece
And
of it.
just a suggestion, and just,
Yep.
this is back on a different section, under 1.2.4, other permits and variances, I'd suggest striking sewer commission, since that's now defunct.
Thank you.
We do have reference to the Department of Public Works, that says highways, stormwater. I mean, you could add sewer division, but I think,
Which one is it,
yeah,
2.4?
1.2.4.
Yeah, a lot of this is
Older
old,
stuff,
and so
yeah.
that's a future effort is to go through, before we ratify this one, we have to go through all of
Yeah.
that, and that's the other, I do have a question into town council. He never responded back to me yet, but part of it is trying to figure out what in here needs to be in zoning and what in zoning needs to be in here, or should be. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of duplication that needs cleanup,
Yeah.
and it's the sewer commission, you said, right?
Years.
Yep. Okay. All right, anything else on that one? All right, moving on. The next item is Ms. Bowman's letter to the board. She sent yesterday, invited her to attend tonight to have a discussion about this, but she is not here. So I do want to address her remarks. I can't speak for other boards prior to this one, but I can say that this current board does not merely pass along Attorney General recommendations like Ms. Bowman has suggested. We do gather the input from Attorney General, just like we do other groups and citizens. We take that information, run it by our own town council for their recommendation. We discuss it, make a decision as a board to either move it forward or not move it forward to town meeting, and then town meeting accepts or rejects the change. Often in the process, we do adjust it and tweak it, so it is, at least in recent memory, it's not the exact, usually it's not the exact recommendation from the Attorney General. So contrary to what Ms. Bowman is suggesting, any zoning recommendations that this board makes to town meeting are our recommendations and not the Attorney General's. This board owns these recommendations, and they're not ever a pass-through for town meeting. So, just wanted to address that. Okay. Next item. Managed growth strategy.
Oh, you're gonna do feedback.
I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Nope.
feedback. I missed that.
No, so, thank you. So, as the planning board designated NIMCOG, I received a memo earlier this month from Jennifer Raitt, the executive director in NIMCOG, and Chris Hayes. And as you reviewed the memo, you probably saw that the NIMCOG council voted to endorse a regional housing strategy called At Home in Greater Lowell. That's that large report that you saw attached to the agenda. And then, basically, the goals are to try to increase housing supply and encourage communities to talk about it, and then finally to encourage action. So in this memo from Jennifer Raitt, at the bottom, she asks us to answer, and she's asked the planning board representative to go back and share it with the whole planning board and, you know, and Evan as community development director. And she would like us to review the strategies and some of the findings in the report, and then answer 2 questions in writing, which she's looking for written answers by April 15th. So I assume, like, going through, if you would like the you as the chair, Chris, and myself, if you want us to work on it.
Sure.
She wants us to answer specifically, which strategy would your planning board want NIMCOG and your community to focus on over the coming year? What support would be needed to move the strategy forward? And then question 2, as NIMCOG develops the toolkit and implementation guide, what additional tools, model policies, data, technical assistance, or public engagement resources would your community need? So I wanted to mention on the at-home and Greater Lowell report, realizing that many people on this board have multiple responsibilities, I'm sure that many of you may or may not have had time to read through all 106 pages, but what I would draw your attention to is really the executive summary is contained in pages 5, 6, and 7 of this report. So on page 5, you have the key findings from NIMCOG, and I won't read them all in the interest of time, but one of the first ones is that, households are aging and shrinking in size in our area. Housing production has not kept pace with demand, as many of you know. Talks about the housing cost, the burden that we all know is out there, that, municipal fiscal health is impacted. And I won't read all of these. And then they lay out 6 goals and 17 strategies. I'm sure many of you had a chance to look at them. And the first one about housing production is increasing the total number of environmentally friendly homes so that people at any stage of life and income can find a place to live, implementing zoning changes that encourage the production of housing to meet current and future needs. I just wanted to offer one of my ideas just to kick it off for discussion, just recognizing that we all know that, as NIMCOG has told us, households are aging and shrinking in size, and the affordability thing. One of the ideas I wanted to offer is, should we explore possibly creating like a zone where, or allowing like a cottage-style development? And the reason I bring that up is in some spots, in some areas, like the town of Westford has one. I know in many vacation areas like southern Maine, maybe possibly New Hampshire, there are cottage developments where you have a small single-floor dwelling, probably about 750 to 900 square feet. And the reason this fits into the age issue is, again, I don't want to generalize for all seniors because everyone's different, and I'm actually close to becoming a senior myself, if not already there, but we're all at different stages of life. But typically, I can say with pretty much certainty, as people age into their 80s and 90s, it's not uncommon for people to have mobility problems. So a smaller residence like a cottage, all on one floor, allows you to have your bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, all on one level. So there's no problem with stairs. And then that would then allow people, and then there also, if you could build more of these smaller dwellings in a development, I would think that a developer could then recruit more money to make it economically feasible. But just one of my ideas, we'd have to explore it more, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
So they're looking for us to give them a recommendation on what strategy. There are 17 strategies, I think. In here.
Yes.
They're looking for a recommendation on what strategy we would like them to focus on, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the timeline for that focus? Is it in the next 5 years? Is it in the next year?
It's the next
I think it's
few
like
years
the
or-
next 10 years. Like, if
yeah.
you look at the charts, they're like going out to 2030, 2035. Like, their projections of what's going to happen if nothing changes, and the growing
I know
disparity.
the focus of the whole document's that far out, but they're asking us to make a recommendation on the strategy that we want NEMCOG to focus on in the next year, 2 years.
They're transitioning to implementation.
Okay.
So they're surveying communities on an individual basis and on a regional basis so that they can prioritize implementation for themselves on the regional level and then for assisting towns.
And the other
We,
thing,
Like the
we just
public-
did a housing production plan with them, like Doesn't that say what our strategy is?
Somewhat, but I think one of the things they left out, and I forgot to mention, is
This was the left
basically,
hand and
yeah,
right hand doing
yeah,
different.
basically they're looking at,
Yeah, I want the two to talk to.
so this isn't, again, this is not for just the town of Chelmsford, but in the region that NIMCOG serves. It says to restore balance to the housing market, the region needs to build between 9,800 to 17,800 units, new units over the next 10 years. And this is across a range of income levels and housing types. And it says at the bottom, without coordinated action in housing growth, if we do nothing, basically just let,
Status quo.
ADUs develop, that only about 3,000 units will be developed. So my other thought on this, in addition to what I just talked about, was a lot of this, I think we're working on in the Managed Growth Strategy Task Force, so I wouldn't want us to get ahead of that, but I feel like we need to provide some type of answer where we
Well,
want,
I feel like we've been talking about this a lot.
Yeah.
In various little buckets.
Well,
And,
yeah.
the missing middle
Exactly.
has consistently been something that we've prioritized. And that seems like one of the options, and also one of the strategies would be like, they talk about public-private partnerships for funding, especially for affordable units that can make units more affordable, and bringing, building modular homes. Like, I'm not opposed to high-quality modular homes in a cottage-style setting to get to some part of that missing middle, because I think it's quite intuitive that, my 6-bedroom, 4-bath home for myself and my husband, as everyone's left, is kind of not an appropriate use of space. So, like, if there was options, which there currently are not, in Chelmsford, where I could move to a small community and live in a smaller space, that would be welcome. So I think, like,
Yeah, to add on to what you're saying, my other thought for proposing, like, that we study the cottage thing is, like, what you're saying, a lot of seniors are in a larger home. Some, again, I don't want to generalize and put everyone in one basket, but some are may be having trouble as they get into the 80s and 90s of maintaining the larger home. They'd like something smaller, but they probably can't find it. And then if those folks had options to buy a smaller unit, that would then free up that single-family home for younger families that may be trying to move into town. But it's just
Sarita, it looked like you were trying
Well,
to say something.
Just a little bit. I guess my question around those cottage style and things like that, what prevents it from moving up? Because where I grew up in Westford, it was a big cottage area, and every single house nowadays is double-decker. They went vertical, and they are on top of each other. So it started off as a very small community, so what prevents that? Is it the rules that you put within zoning and stuff to say you can't, and then who prevents that from changing in the future? Because somebody decided at some point it was okay. I mean, these houses, you're in, like my house I grew up in, you see the next door neighbor's kitchen. Everyone just goes up. You're on the second floor, your bathroom faces their bedroom. Like, it gets ridiculous. So that's my concern with that type of thing.
It would
like
have
the
to be
idea
in
of it.
zoning.
Yeah,
But if the town wants to change it down the road,
Right.
they can.
right.
But that's where it would start.
Yeah. But again, I understand this housing shortage, but there are communities that are closer to Boston and have a ton of land. And if they started to develop, in my neighborhood, I live in East Chelmsford, there's a bunch of houses that are 800 square feet. Like, they're the ranches that were, first built, and they're on not even a quarter of an acre. Like, there's plenty here. They don't come up, they're not available because people are buying them and trying to, raise a family. But I don't know, I keep going back to how the state keeps saying that, there's a shortage of a shortage, and yet they don't focus on the towns that could actually help alleviate it. And I'm talking towns like Concord, Carlisle, Lincoln. Lincoln has a ton of land. Like, there are communities out there that are, I don't know. Like, they opened up, then I don't think we further out, that doesn't have a lot of space
But, I think there's people in Chelmsford
available.
who would welcome having some lower cost, lower size options also. And be able to stay in town,
I know Westford.
Absolutely.
Westford over by 495, when I'm thinking like when you're headed towards like Market Basket and stuff, they have that very small community over there with very small houses. I don't know what the requirements are for people living in that area, but it's a very small zone that they seem to have a lot of people living in very small houses. I mean, it's a neat idea, but then again, where does the space come from?
And I agree that a lot of this is needed, but my eyes immediately went to the last strategy, regional infrastructure growth plan. Because no matter what we do on anything else, if we can't improve our infrastructure, none of that is happening.
Right.
So to me, I would love NIMCOG to, instead of focusing on all of these other things that won't do any good if we can't do that last one, focus on that last one
Push that up
first.
to the top.
And let's fix the sewer capacity, the traffic, the infrastructure.
All right, so let's put that as our
I
priority
would love
for
to see
them.
that first, because all of these other things we're kind of doing in different ways already.
Right.
But unless that infrastructure gets improved, no one's building anything new
Right.
or improving anything,
Yeah. No,
because there's no sewer capacity left. So I would love to do all of the other things, but I don't see them actually doing any good without that last one. And I think that that last one is going to require a lot of assistance from NEMCOG, from the state, because I don't see that one happening anytime soon with just Chelmsford.
Well, it needs money. And like, where do you get the money from?
Okay,
You need money
investment.
from somewhere.
I mean, maybe we should suggest that they should build smaller water treatment plants. Like, we can't just all keep piling onto Goose Island that's done. You know, like, what else can we do? Or can they help us do?
I mean, the town did a study, and they really, again, can't quote it verbatim, but it basically said that they could not identify a suitable area for a sewage treatment plant because it's, being realistic, who in this town wants a sewage treatment plant next to them?
Yeah, but I mean,
Well, that's
if
why I'm
you're
saying it
doing,
needs to be a
like-
So-
regional effort, not a
Right.
town effort.
No, but also too, in the same report, they also studied the options for the town to connect to the Mass Water Resources Authority, but that's going to be a significant investment
I
and a
know.
multi-year project to either connect going through Bill Rickett to Burlington or trying to go through Woburn.
But like the UMass project, I mean, they built a water treatment plant for the, however, how many units altogether, 396 plus 60, you know, for, whatever it is. And they built a water treatment plan for that.
Mhm.
Like, if you scale it down to a neighborhood and, you know, include, I mean, maybe there could be some funding provided by the government or by the regional authorities to help with that, with that. I mean, if they're gonna make housing such a priority and our infrastructure to provide housing is lacking, then how can they help us mitigate that? I agree with Chris, that should be the top.
I would also recommend that they include school infrastructure on that one as well, because I don't think I saw,
Well, I think that just goes along with the infrastructure
Yeah.
support.
but I don't think I saw water, sewer, energy listed out here, but nothing about school infrastructure either.
Yeah, that's a good point, because working with the MSBA is a long, multi-year process, so, you know, I think I've said this before too, it's not that easy to build a public school. It
Yeah.
can be done, but it's
Look
a
at
significant
Marcy.
investment, and it's a multi-year process. And the other thing we can do is also reference the, you know, we have not, the Managed Growth Strategy Task Force is just getting underway, and so the results of that might direct the town in a certain way.
Right, which was our comment on the housing production plan was, okay, well, yeah, this sounds good, but understand we're looking at that and things may change. Yeah.
All right, I think that's all good input that we can use to frame a response.
Anything else? Let's see.
What's a readout?
He's gonna read something.
So Deirdre and I actually went to the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative Conference this past week. I didn't have a chance to pull together all of my notes, and they didn't release the slides till, some of the slides this afternoon.
Oh, I didn't even see them yet.
Yeah, just the one I went to. I didn't see all of them. So I just wanted to give a quick summary of the conference. And then I think at a future meeting, if Deirdre's good with this, we can compile some additional information and feedback and information and get it out to the rest of the board. So it was held at Holy Cross on this past Saturday. It was a full day, or almost full day, till 3 o'clock session. I found it really, really informative. I thought it was a really good session. Got to meet some planners and planning board members from other parts of the state and the area. The keynote speaker was Chris Clutchman. She is the Undersecretary of the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. She talked about the MBTA program, the ADUs, and what that office is doing. And then the sessions I went to is reasonable and defensible decisions. There was one Who Wants to Be a Zoning Expert that talked about zoning facts and information. And then there was one about managing challenging meetings. That was okay. It was less about challenging public meetings and more about challenging meetings, kind of one-on-one, difficult discussions, stuff like that. So didn't see a lot of relation to public meetings, but
That's not what I thought that was gonna be.
yeah, me neither.
I was kind of jealous that I wasn't going to that.
You didn't miss much.
Well, I didn't, I went to 2 for the third one and locked out of both of them because they didn't seem relevant to me. So I went to, the first one I went to was on climate resiliency playbook, advancing Mass communities' climate action. And interestingly, it was showcasing an actual climate resiliency playbook. There's a site online where you can look up various questions regarding ecosystems and infrastructure and housing, and they look into various questions and low-hanging fruit responses and suggestions. So the website is actually resiliency playbook, or resilience playbook, maybe I can't read my writing, .mapc.org. And if you go there, it's really interesting. I mean, there's review standards and that you can bring in, and suggestions for regulation and how to integrate various regulations into town bylaws and zoning. So I mean, I haven't really gone to it since the meeting and played around with it, but it seems like it would be something really worth delving into.
So if you want to write up your notes and
Yeah.
send them to me, I can compile everything
Yeah.
and get the slides and stuff.
And then the other one I went to was design-based zoning, achieving community vision through form-based code, which was also really interesting. They did a couple case studies. One was Newton Village Center zoning, and one was Littleton Village Common form-based code that was done in 2019. And there was also a Evans equivalent from Orleans, who talked about a project in Orleans. But basically, that highlights what is form-based code, and it, as opposed to traditional code, and what are the advantages of using it, and suggests things that can be considered enabling people to do by right projects that incorporate certain features in getting what we want in terms of the local zoning.
Anything else?
The other two I walked out of.
Okay,
You took a lot of
all right.
notes.
What was
You
that?
took a lot of notes.
I did.
So if you want to send those to me at some point, I can compile them
I'll try and organize
with
them a
links and
little bit.
stuff and
It's
get
like-
them out to the rest of the board.
There's like 10 pages of each.
I would highly recommend this conference for others to attend. It was, some of the sessions were good, some were not that great, obviously. But it was a really good chance to talk with a lot of other planners and planning board members about the struggles that they're facing, and some of the challenges and solutions, so.
And I don't think the two that I went to weren't good, it's just they weren't relevant to
Yeah.
a planning board member. One was really geared towards being a consultant, which
Oh,
I
right.
thought it was like working with a consultant, but it was no, being a
Yeah.
consultant, so that didn't.
What
And then
would
there
you-
was a roundtable discussion, it was just a very small group, and I felt like if I was gonna be there, I should have specific questions that I wanted to discuss, and I really didn't have a specific question, so I just felt embarrassed to sit there and spectate.
What were some of the top problems or whatever that?
A lot of towns, at least at the tables I was talking to people about, a lot of towns are not seeing a lot of projects right now, because of the cost of goods being so expensive and interest rates being high. So a lot of towns are seeing a decrease in projects. The other trend that we heard a lot about was the warehouse boom in building all these warehouses, and now they're sitting empty because they can't get tenants for them, for those flex warehouses. So those were two trends that were interesting. And then distribution centers, things like that. So similar issues that other planning boards are facing. All right. Managed growth strategy. Any other updates?
No.
All right. Zoning article updates. So this is a version of the document we went over. I'm going to be using this to keep track of all of the changes and drafts and stuff like that. So I'll keep updating this as we move forward. Nothing really to talk on that one. River Neck Road, nothing to discuss here. We've got that on the agenda for May. All right, Pilo changes. So if you go to the last document, so there are 3 changes related to Pilo that we were talking about. There's the updated policy for when we would use Pilo. There's the updating of the bylaw to remove the dollar amounts and in D1.
It's responding to you, Chris.
You're trying to get back in.
I don't know why it's responding to me.
I think she's holding the button.
And then the last one would be the eventual public hearing we would need to have on updating the formulas. So I figured I'd tackle the first 2 drafts. For an updated policy on when to use Pilo,
Can I have that extra,
Oh, sure, this,
that one? For some reason, mine is set up for the last meeting.
Oh, mine was too. I had to go get a new one.
I don't know how to do that, so
All right.
I can't get into Google, so.
so when I was doing some research for updating the policy on when to use Pilo, I found in Ipswich bylaws, they have this wording. And I thought that this wording was pretty on track for what we were talking about last meeting. And then another example I found actually doesn't accept PILO for fractions. They round units up. Which I thought was interesting. So we could go with this draft, we could make some changes. Thoughts?
I like using it for the fractionation. I think it's fair. You know, you're making them do the round number ones, provide the units, and then hopefully using the dollar amount from the fractionated units that hopefully you can leverage to generate more units. I feel like if you make developers round up, it's possible that it just reduces the
Yeah, it could,
affordable units
yeah,
built.
it could reduce the viability of the project at
Yeah.
that point, I think. So,
It seems more fair to me.
okay. Are people good with the wording?
Well, it seems fine.
Okay.
So just to clarify, the existing bylaw, section C, indicates that all fractions are rounded up.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed that
Yeah.
too, that ours actually says that even though we haven't been.
What do you mean we haven't been?
I didn't think we rounded up. I thought we accepted PILO for the fraction.
Well, we've only done that, I think, once, and it was a theoretical. I think it was the one, it was for the plan in Central Square that hasn't been built. We tackled the question.
You may have had a discussion, but I don't think there's been
Well,
a
it was
real
just
project
It was just applicability.
yeah.
But when we discussed it in
Oh, okay,
applicability.
okay.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been a real project
Right.
and a real discussion with an applicant talking about applying the PILO to the fraction of a unit,
Right.
whether that's a former board or a current board. That's never been, it's never been discussed at that
Right.
level of detail.
We had a work session on this.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
yeah.
in the work session, we kind of had arrived at that as a,
Yeah, but I didn't realize our bylaws actually said we shouldn't be doing that.
Rounding up for purposes of, to remember, our bylaw mirrors 40B. So 40B regulations rounds up. And if you have a fraction of a unit based upon 25% affordability, then it would require an additional affordable unit. So for purposes of creating affordable units, rounding up provides more affordable housing.
Right, right.
So there's just the other item here is I think the Ipswich model appears to, in parentheses, say a development less than 7 total units. That's probably embedded in their
Yeah.
bylaw. Again, ours mirrors 40B, so for every 4 units, 1 affordable is required.
so, I mean, I would contest what Evan's saying because the former boards haven't, they haven't been using, I don't think, this formula. They've taken random numbers and said, oh, you added a pocket part that's 3 by 5 and we're gonna value that at a lot of money and take that off the PILO. Or you've done a line for water that you needed to do to build the development, and we're gonna call that a community improvement and give you credit towards your PILO for that. And like, no units are actually gonna have been getting built. And so we said, we're gonna make the units get built, which was a big change from what had been happening for a number of years. And then when it came to this fractional bit, then we were having some flexibility with regards to an actual payment in lieu.
So right now, we're 20%. In other words, that if you're building 4, then you need to add an affordable unit, so that's 25% actually.
Yep. Yeah, the
Okay.
bylaw states that the project needs to comply with the 40B standards. So there's a difference between ownership and rental.
Right,
Our bylaw says that regardless of which option, it has to be 25%, and then it contemplates a density bonus.
yeah, because I was gonna say this works out to, what, 10%, I think, right? Because if it's less than 8. So,
The Ipswich.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
so
ours-
requiring 1 for 8 is.
Ours,
is
it just,
12.
yeah, I mean, the strategy for our bylaw at the time was twofold. We were still chasing 10%, so that's why we did mirror 40B. The other big benefit, which this board is aware of with 3 Meeting House, is that our bylaw requires that the affordable units are at 50% AMI. And under 40B law, if they are, then all of the rental units count. So that's been a big benefit to the town.
Yeah, right.
So the board's seen a variety of different kinds of projects over the years, and the ones that you've seen more recently are, like a 3 Meeting House type project. Those developers seem to be able to make the numbers work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I do like the 25%, because I think we do need, because we're gonna be losing units in 2030, right? Like 100 and something.
And
Something
yeah, I
like
think
that.
some units are, at least per SHI, they believe some units are coming off in 2028. I believe David Hedison has provided documentation to indicate that those are protected in perpetuity. So at some point, we'll have to work with the state on that.
Okay.
I
I
thought
think-
also that our former council thought they were protected as well.
Yeah, yeah. If you parlay this into, managed growth strategy, and then we just talked about the housing strategies, if the board's gonna pursue missing middle, cottage style, lower density per project, then the 40B ratios may not work. They're very difficult for small projects. Medium to high density, mathematically, they work. So again, if you're talking about a strategy of infill development on Chelmsford Street, small quads or, eightplex, the current inclusionary housing bylaw just may not be a good fit for those kinds of projects.
Well, I mean, we might want to look at having a different tiering system for smaller developments.
Yeah.
In terms of the
Yeah, exactly.
requirements for affordability.
Mhm.
I mean, I wonder, I think the original intent of the PILO was to give the board more flexibility. But I think to the detriment of making units, it hasn't really worked. So, I mean, if we can find a sweet spot,
Well, I mean, we don't need to do the pilot, do we? We could just not accept.
Yeah, so the way the
Bylaw.
bylaw is currently worded is it provides an option. It doesn't need to provide an option, meaning it legally doesn't have to provide a PILO. At the time, the reason that the PILO was included was twofold. One, the board members in the committee that worked on it wanted to provide a buyout option. And they also wanted to have a provision that said that the board could reduce the formula. And then David Hedison at the time stated to the board and the committee that many of the smaller developers in town have little or no experience with affordable housing and wouldn't be interested in managing affordable housing. And David said that it would be just as easy and preferred if the pilot was provided, and then his relationship with the town would continue to be strengthened, where he would go to the town, he would apply for the money, and be given the money to build community-based housing. So again, depending upon the strategy, if you're doing a tiered approach and it's, 12, 15 plus units, maybe the current ratio works. But if you're really gonna be strategizing, smaller infill type developments, the current bylaw probably will not work.
And the challenge we also have is with ADUs, those are adding.
Units.
And they're adding units and.
Not affordable ones.
Not affordable at all.
Yeah, so I mean, the other part of this may be, provide the board with an update on the 40B SHI projections. Once Smith Street comes online, and once the 46 units or 50 units at UMass West Campus come online.
I think it's 54.
Yeah, I mean, that's 75 more units. So in 2030, we'll probably be hovering around 10% again.
Gives us some
I
breathing
mean, between
room.
ADUs and new single families and conversions, we average about 25 new dwelling units a year on a good year.
I can say,
And and those projects don't even come before the board.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my point, is that those smaller numbers keep creeping up.
Right.
And we're not seeing the larger developments because of the sewer issue. And so we're not
Right.
balanced.
I was gonna say, I can recall one instance where, so these payments go into the Affordable Housing Stabilization Fund. So if you remember, just a few years back, town meeting approved a withdrawal of, it was like $625,000 for a Chelmsford Housing Authority project, Maple Ridge, on that little carve-out of the 255 Princeton property. So there's an instance where, I mean, I know that was a small part of the overall funding, but,
Is
my
that the
point is-
choice one?
I'm not sure if
On
it's choice,
UMass
but
West?
it's
Yes.
on the carve-out of
Yes.
UMass West. So
Yeah.
in that case,
That's a
Evan
good
may
example
recall,
as
yeah.
to what David and the board and town meeting contemplated and understood as a strategy at the time.
But that's the first time it's been used, I think.
Well, that 600+ thousand was cobbled together from a variety of projects that did pay the
They hadn't been
pilot.
collecting it, hardly.
All the projects paid a PILO. It didn't
Yeah,
pay
but
100% PILO.
They paid like 6% on the one at the
Turnpike?
No, the restaurant.
Yeah, so it's been wide ranging, but the point I'm trying to make to the board is, as I understand it, the board has essentially said, of all the priorities or all the asks, we're gonna prioritize getting you to build the affordable units. We're not interested in pocket parks and sidewalks and better architecture and things of that nature.
If you do that, it comes out of you, not us, not affordable housing.
So the initial strategy was, we acknowledge that not all developers are interested in managing affordable housing. Not all developers have the wherewithal or interest.
Doesn't the Chelmsford Housing Authority manage the affordable unit?
They do on contract, but you still have developers who don't have any experience with dealing with income eligible people. There's a variety of unique and specialized interests that go along with providing affordable housing. So this is why David was saying at the time that he advocated for, if you take the PILO, and he wasn't advocating for reduced PILO, he was saying if you take the PILO, we have a successful track record with the town whereby we can build community-based housing that meets a very specific need that's supported by the town and creates housing in a volume. So that's the strategy that the town's been relying on for the last decade plus.
Right. But now David's fading out of the
He's
picture.
he's still the director of choice.
But he does it all over the state.
Right.
So, I think what you're doing here is good. It's within a very, it's within, it's more of a refinement rather than a revisiting.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe it's less about not wanting to do the pilo and more about making sure it's 100% pilo and not reducing it for other amenities.
Right, and that's all baked into the COID special permit negotiation. And again, the strategy at the time with COID and Center Village and inclusionary was to provide the board on a case-by-case basis, the ability to push and pull the levers based upon what was best for the neighborhood and for the town. The fact is that the developer has a sum of money in their pro forma that they're willing to do miscellaneous mitigation of public benefit, but it's not an endless bucket. If you add on 100% PILO, water and sewer capacity impact fees, sidewalk fees, enhanced architecture, most projects in Chelmsford, if they're not large scale, just can't accommodate it. So I think this isn't saying we're prioritizing 100% PILO, but I think that's kind of the context of the conversation.
Yeah.
But when the next project comes in, once the board understands the neighborhood issues and abutter issues and the board's priorities and the town's priorities, the board may want to reserve its right to change its mind.
Marcy, Anita, any thoughts?
Marcy's shaking her head no.
Nah.
I mean, I think we want to continue to prioritize building units rather than getting funding.
I agree.
And I think we also want to prioritize not making it an undue burden to round up. So finding some way that if rounding up is going to create some sort of undue burden, like if you're building 2 units and now you have to build a third, that has to be affordable. That seems like an undue burden in my mind. Then providing some sort of option for a PILO in that case.
And I
would
think
be reasonable.
recognizing the economies of scale, it might be worth
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
under 10 units, I don't know what the number should be, and I don't know how we could arrive at a number. Honestly, I don't know if maybe we could ask David, but, if it's under 10 units, maybe 15% would be a more reasonable requirement. I don't know. But I think it's worth, exploring that question and
Right.
trying to get some input. I mean, maybe NEMCOG could help us with that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's tied directly to what, managed growth strategy and what are the housing strategies? What's the scope and scale? What's the number of units?
So do people want to put this on hold until we do a little bit more work on the managed growth strategy? Or, because I think the other thing is that I think most of the people on this board are in agreement with the approach that we want to take. But I think the question is, do we want to codify that in our policies, regulations, zoning?
I would, for what it's worth, I would codify this now.
Yeah.
Because, the existing bylaws, including the sewer constraints where you cannot connect to the municipal sewer system if it's 100% residential. There's a variety of other constraints where codifying this policy is just for the here and now. And I think we fully understand
Yeah.
the reality of the here and now.
Okay. I can also update the less than 7 units, and make that the 4
It's 4 or more is what's applicable.
But that would be something we'd be looking at, right, is to create potentially a scale of some kind.
A tiered approach.
Yeah.
And the
Um,
other thing is that we never updated the formula of the dollar amount per
Right.
unit. And
So-
then, you know, for owning and for renting and for studio versus 2-bedroom, like, that's a very old number, and we made a decision when we were changing to prioritizing the units, not to update the dollar amount to kind of see how it went, which we really haven't done, because we haven't had a project where it came up, but we didn't want to make it too onerous by, I mean, but those numbers are very outdated.
Yeah, so what I think I'm hearing is that we move forward with this policy and the simple bylaw update recommended by town council in the near term. So when we start doing the next round of updates for town meeting, in the meantime, we would approach the third point of this, which is updating the formulas, and as part of that, looking at potentially stratifying the
Small development, big
small
development.
development, big
Right.
development.
But if you do that, then you need to take out the numeric wording here, right?
You need to what?
That payments may only be made when less than one full unit is required, i.e. development less than 7 total units. I
So-
think-
I think for the short term, we leave in the percent, right? The 4 units?
Yeah, I would reference the current inclusionary housing bylaw.
Yeah.
Which
Okay,
is 4 or more.
Okay.
So for this change, we do the 4 or more, and then in the third step of this,
Well,
which is,
would we reference the inclusionary
Yeah.
bylaw thing? I
Yeah.
mean, just so that you don't have 2 places where a number has to be changed.
right, yeah. So I'll reference the inclusionary bylaw.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good idea.
And then for the longer term, which is gonna be a lot longer process with the hearings and input from David and the Housing Authority, update the numbers and as part of that, potential stratification.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay. And just for people's reference, I did put a few links here
see
for
that.
other towns and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see, next item. Contractor yard definition updates. Trying to remember what we had talked about on that one.
I think you and I discussed limited information out there.
Yep.
I had indicated that I believe council has access to a statewide database that can do keyword searches. I have not approached him on that yet. I think he's delayed on your response for your other item. It's in the middle of town meeting
Yep.
season.
That's
So-
going for months for him.
March, April, and into May. So I can still reach out to council and inquire about the statewide database that they have.
Yeah, if you can.
Yep.
And then Joel, I think, now looking at my notes, you were gonna check in with DPW.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to check in
Okay.
with DPW, but I did do a search generally on ITE-related stuff. And there's some limited stuff online, but I probably will reach out directly to ITE as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
We may wanna think about maybe looking at this in late May. Give people time to do that research.
Yeah.
We can put that on the agenda for May,
Yeah.
along with Riverneck.
Yeah.
All right. Any other topics for discussion tonight?
I had raised the question of whether we should start looking at data centers, the definition of data center. So I could pull together a sort of introduction discussion type of briefing for an upcoming meeting, either the next meeting or the meeting after that, to just sort of identify what these, there's a lot online about data centers, fortunately. So it's like what the major issues are, what are the kinds of things then that we may be concerned about, that sort of thing.
Sounds good.
So,
You picking up on what's going on in
Lowell.
Tewksbury, I think, as well? Is that a battery storage or a data center?
That was battery storage in
Battery
Yeah,
Tewksbury.
yeah,
So the battery storage, I think, have some sort of exemption because a state siting
Yeah.
facility. I don't know, I don't think data centers have any protection yet.
Nope, not yet.
So I mean, just not
Maybe
to
coming.
belabor this, but remember in our zoning, if
We
the
need
use is not
citizen petition.
specifically listed, it's prohibited.
Oh,
So,
well,
I
yeah.
mean, data centers clearly aren't warehouses or distribution facilities. I don't know what they are, but I know they're not that.
Well, that's part of the problem,
Yeah.
is that generally people don't have it well-defined.
Right.
And so then they come in, and part of the problem is just figuring out, do
Right.
you apply, do you not apply?
That's
How
why
do
I'm
you
just
apply?
mentioning to you.
Where do you apply? Yeah.
If they can't with a straight face convince Jose, the building commissioner, that they fit into an existing use classification,
Yeah.
then it's not
then it's not
Yeah.
permitted.
It's not permitted.
And this was really prompted more by the Lowell situation,
Yeah.
where they're just putting things on hold until they figure out
Yeah,
what
and
their
it'd also be
zoning is.
interesting how
So-
maybe Lowell, actually, maybe they changed their zoning to accommodate that.
what is
that
the
proposal.
Lowell situation? Sorry.
There's a data center that's going in Lowell.
Oh,
It's already in.
It's there.
Yeah, it's
In the
been there,
Sacred
yeah.
Heart neighborhood, it's just they've expanded over time, and,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that area was, I don't want to speak negatively, but it was kind of industrial when when Prince Pasta moved out, it was kind of a depressed area, so they were looking for something to fill that void, and
I think the specific
But it's
issue
been there
is,
for years now.
Yeah.
it has been, but I think the specific issue is not
Okay.
with the data center itself, but the required generators and cooling
Right.
tanks that
So
sit
super
outside.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the data center requirements now have exponentially exploded because of
Right.
AI.
Interestingly enough, ITE now has added a data center as one of its land use codes.
They generate a lot of traffic.
No, they don't generate much traffic at all. But, yeah,
Yeah,
hardly any traffic at
interesting,
all.
yeah.
But they did add it as a
Yeah.
land use code. I don't know what the definition for it, I just
Huh,
saw that they had
interesting.
it. Yeah. So I was gonna ask
Well,
about
maybe
that.
we need to,
too.
Maybe we should look at that for River Neck.
What, to allow it?
Big data
No.
set, well, in the building that's already there, doesn't have to generate traffic.
So
Well,
they,
there's other issues.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
saying like other issues with
Well,
it,
I
like, like is like grid capacity, reliability during peak demand, cost and strain on local infrastructure.
Must
Well,
be
then,
aqua-
like you
must be
said,
aquifer
backup
concerns,
generators,
too.
fuel,
Yeah.
fuel storage, noise impact,
Right.
water use for cooling,
Right.
limited job creation. There's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and my
you could have
guess
a
is
data
that
center
the
if it's
generation.
all fueled by solar power.
So,
There's a growth industry for you.
given my knowledge of IT and data centers, I'm guessing the one in Lowell went in as a warehouse or other use, because data center was probably not a primary use, and then expanded to
That
be a primary
aspect of it,
use.
yeah.
And that's kind of what I would worry about here too.
Right.
Is that you
So
could,
can we exclude it?
you could classify a data center under a number of different uses.
Well,
And
could
then
we give it
expand it.
its own designation and then exclude it, like
That's kind
a
of what
la-
I think
Well, it-
we would look to do.
a la girly bar?
Distribution centers?
Well, those, you have to have like a specific zone, right? It's just, we do have a very high industrial, those CX, I think it is. It's like right in the middle of an IA area.
I think first we need to define it,
Yes.
look at the impacts, and then see
Yeah.
if we want to allow it
Yeah,
In-
exactly,
in town.
exactly.
Because the thing too is like you can have portions of a warehouse that have so much automation and everything else. They have big portions of these things in their facilities. So where do you draw the line?
Right.
It would be primary use.
Yeah.
An AWS data center is obviously now a primary use, whereas,
So I guess
10
there
years
would be
ago,
a
it might
change
not
of
have been.
use, right? If something was less and then it became more, it'd be
Yeah.
a change of use, right?
Yeah.
And my guess is that that's what Lowell's dealing with, is that it probably came in as, if it was is it Markley?
Mark,
Yes.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
probably came in as an IT service or something like that. And then it expanded to a data center.
the most recent hot button issue I saw was the requirement, how many, they wanted to install several additional diesel tanks for, for the emergency backup generator, so that was a point of contention.
We also, at the same time, may want to look at the R&D definition to make sure that that would exclude data centers
Yeah.
as a primary use.
I have a random question, but I keep on thinking about it when we talk about all these definitions. I remember we were talking about that Kohl's storefront thing, and people were talking about fast casual not being a definition anywhere, and we have fast food restaurants, fast casual. Does that need to be defined at some point if we're trying to bring in certain businesses and people are complaining about it? Because that kept on coming up, and I've
Yeah, I'm
heard it
trying
a
to
few
remember
times.
back to
The
those
mall.
discussions.
Is
Evan,
it-
is there an industry standard?
Yeah, there's definitions for
Yeah.
that.
I thought so.
The only place that it's specifically mentioned at this point is in the 129 overlay. And while we don't define fast casual, we define characteristics that we want them to meet.
To have silverware.
Yeah.
Right, but so does that need to be defined in our?
It could if you're going to begin treating, if you're going to begin encouraging fast casual restaurants over traditional fast food restaurants, then you'd want to define it, you'd want to put it in the use table. But if you're going to consider fast food and upscale fast casual, basically the same difference, then you could just use your existing
Yeah.
fast food definition.
I just know when people were talking and listening to talk about town, that seems to come up. I keep on hearing it come up, so it's just something.
I can put it on the list for our priorities to look at.
It's small, but it's just something that if we're trying to change or allow certain businesses, I like the idea.
Yep. Okay. All right, meeting minutes. March 11th. Saritha, you were out
So I
for
can't
that
vote.
one, so you will not be able to vote on this.
Looked okay to me. I read it quickly.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything wrong with it.
Trying to find my notes because I want to make sure.
Well, if Saritha wasn't present, there couldn't be a 8-0.
Yep, that was the note
Adjournment.
that I just found.
Back to that. We were out, so therefore there's no 8-0 votes.
Yes.
Yep.
Just like there
Yeah.
should be no 8-0 votes tonight.
All right, so I will take a motion to accept those minutes with that one change.
Motion to accept the minutes from March 11th with the exception of the 8-0 vote being corrected to 7.
Motion by Deirdre,
Second?
second by John. Marcy,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joel,
Aye.
and I am an aye. That is 6 of us. Yeah, 6 of us, 1 abstain. I will take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Deirdre. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you,
Aye.
everyone.
Unanimous.